in part one, we listed the significant events that, starting from the Big Bang, that got us to the present. Well, now we're going to continue that list into the possible events of the future. In this illustration here, you can see two possible events. One is contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence, part of SETI. That would be a significant event because they're likely to be very technologically advanced. The other on the right is just illustrates the explosive growth of technology in the past 60 years, 80 years. And there could come a time when machines are so smart, smarter than we are, that machines take over their own destiny. That would be called the singularity. So let's get going and start talking about the future. This diagram starts at the bottom with the Big Bang and the formation of the sun and the earth. And it ends up at the top with events of the last 100 years. And you'll notice the time interval gets smaller and smaller as we go up. And I'm going to continue doing that as we speculate about the future. Let's imagine that we are now 10 years later. We're going to divide by 10 again, and we're going to imagine in 10 years, some beings, probably us, are going to look back and say, what happened in the last 10 years? I've just gotten us up. What happened in the last 100 years? So what might happen in the 10 years from now? So that means that we're going to step, I put a 1 up there. Now we're going to step 10 years ahead. And there we are, January 1st, 2032. And there's this gap between 1 year from 2032 and 10 years from 2032. And what are we going to put in the column of significant events in the next 10 years? The things that come to my mind are both bad. That's just what I worry about when I read the newspapers. Worldwide social breakdown and nuclear weapons actually getting used. Say that's bad stuff. But let's not stop there. I just divided by 10. Let's divide again and go to 2033. There we are. It's possible that if nuclear weapons are used, then it's possible that the nuclear powers will say, stop, this is crazy. Let's really ban them and let's make war obsolete. Wonderful thought, and it could happen. There's conversations on the internet that say war is already obsolete. We haven't used them since 1945. But don't be too calm. There's always pandemics, and they arise naturally, and we know all about that now. But it's also possible that a well-equipped biolaboratory could develop a pathogen that is much more lethal and much more easy to transmit than anything we've seen before, and could release it deliberately. And you'd say, why would they do that? And I would say, there are people who would do it. You could debate that question. But look, I haven't mentioned climate. Climate has a lot of potential, and it's woven into some of these things like worldwide social breakdown and terrible refugee problems and the violence that goes with all of that, and not to mention starvation and disease. So climate is definitely in there, and it creeps up on you, but it could actually have sudden tipping points as well. So it's not all bad. We do have ever better technology, and we could be successful in controlling climate. We could switch over to all solar energy, and we could control the climate with geoengineering. And that's a dangerous thing if we do it wrong, but if we do it right, it could be a very good thing. But remember, we have powerful technology to help us. Now, let's not stop with geoengineering. Let's talk about human engineering. Some people think dark forces have put chips into their heads already, but serious merging, fiddling with our own genome and merging with our technology could make us super beings. It's possible. Technology, medical technology could make us immortal. There's no rule that says you have to die if you've got technology on your side. Now, throughout all this, we're assuming computers keep developing greater and greater powers. We could rely more and more on those machines, and it's even possible that the machines could take over. And people talk about the internet taking over its own destiny, especially if we give the machines the power to manufacture and design better machines. They might decide we've got a better way to do it, and we don't need humans to help us. And then there's the wild card right at the top. Contact with extrasolar intelligence could be good, but it could be bad, because it's almost inevitable that that intelligent civilization will be way advanced of us, because we've only come online in the last 50 or 100 years, and they've had who knows how long to improve their technology and intelligence. All right. Let me, there's a problem here, and let me demonstrate it with a graph. This is really nothing but the graph I showed you before, but it's been rotated on its side so that the significant events are now the x-axis, and those numbers there, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, are the cumulative number, and I've only got, I think, 17 of them, and that's that today arrow. The future, which we've just talked about, is that blank space on the right. And on the y-axis of this graph is that logarithmic time axis. And a straight line in a logarithmic linear plot like this is an exponential. And this is obviously a decaying exponential. And you might say, what is decaying? It is time itself. It's decaying as a function of the significant events. The significant events are going to keep marching ahead, but the time for them to take place, according to this model, this exponential model, is getting shorter and shorter. And so let me add all the future things that I've just talked about and watch the y-axis as I do it. The y-axis gets shorter and shorter time steps. 10 to the minus 5 years is just a few minutes. And yet all those things that we talked about that might happen in the future, there they are, going out to 22. So basically the model has failed. It was a pretty good model up to today, but now there's just not enough time for all these significant events to happen. Here's another way to look at it. We keep dividing by 10 and we get shorter and shorter time steps. And if we started with January 1st, 2022 at the number 10 in the middle, we get down to running out of time. The model is singular, that we run out of time sometime February 9th in 2033. So this model has failed us, but that does not mean that these significant events won't happen in the future. It just means that the model doesn't get when they'll happen, and maybe they'll happen in the next 1,000 years, or maybe they won't happen at all, and maybe other things will happen. That's the end of part 2. And I invite you to watch part 3, where we discuss what the writers and religious leaders have said about technology and the future.